and this car ignored him. It was a metal socket. And he hit the hood of the car and
Other-
I don't know if you ended up having to deal with that or.
Just different
And
experience.
he was hollering at that guy and go bang, bang.
Hi there. There was temperatures, it was like 38 and then, well, no, it was 42 or something. And then it
Name
said
that
feels
tune.
like
Is that the
30.
Oompa
Yeah.
Loompas?
Try to take my
Is
poor
that-
puppy for a walk.
Which of us? Or
We
chocolate
call it the
factory?
drag.
Chocolate factory.
I just sort of drag her
It
until
was one of those.
I finally gave up and said, okay. we can turn back around. Then she wanted to go back. She's, yeah, poor thing. I've never had a dog with like no hair. Went to Goodwill, bought her a whole bunch of size 5T sweaters. Made her wear those.
I know, because what's funny is tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, everything's gonna be perfect. We're not gonna have bad gas prices.
Where's that? Tomorrow?
Good,
That's
because I
what
have
they're
a
telling
one
us.
hour window tomorrow where I can pick up all my.
No, we're gonna.
And then the rest of the week is shot and next week is shot.
We're gonna.
Everything's gonna be perfect.
For what?
Gonna be corrected.
Who's telling you that?
The Republicans. But I mean, the Democrats would
Yeah.
tell you that if they weren't.
I don't know if they're telling me that.
I know.
Well,
No,
they're telling me
Um,
how it is, but I already know how that is.
oh, yeah. No, I agree.
I know how
You
bad
can
it
scoot
get.
back a little bit.
Yeah,
That might help you. I know. Yeah, we've talked about it.
Unless they fix it.
I was telling Bill, I want to bet this button, put on TV. You have people on the ballot, you can push the button and all those.
Cole to come to our nice warm city council meeting and workshop this evening. We'll start out with the workshop, and that's run by Brian. Let's have a roll call first.
Council President Schilling.
Here.
Counselor Briggs. Counselor Collins.
Present.
Counselor Crawford, not seeing. Counselor Dunham is excused this evening. Counselor Fitzgerald. Counselor Hahn.
Here.
Counselor Verdon, not seeing. She's also excused. She is excused. And Counselor Woods. Thank you.
Off we go. Over to you, Brian.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So tonight we have for our workshop a presentation from our Public Works Department, and our Public Works Director, Gary Marks, is here. Hi, Gary, and I will turn the time over to him to give his annual report.
Well, members of the council, Mayor Dalton, it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm pleased to give you my annual report for 2021, 2022. So we'll just start off. The engineering department, or the Public Works Department has 8 divisions. Engineering services, water treatment and distribution, street, stormwater, and wastewater collection all grouped together. Wastewater treatment, which is under a contract with Jacobs Engineering for operations, fleet maintenance, facilities maintenance, parks maintenance, which was reported to you on October 3rd. So I won't be covering that here again. And as was Dallas Aquatic Center presented to you on the 3rd of October. So our flow chart, we have 29 full-time employees and 27 part-time employees. Most of the part-time employees are at the Aquatic Center, but we're arranged in those divisions I just showed you. And if you want to look at that later, I'd be happy to provide that to you. So I'm going to go through each division and tell you what they do, what our accomplishments were over the past year, and what we're looking forward to in the future. So the Engineering Services Division manages city infrastructure projects, those projects that we're building for the city. We also oversee private infrastructure development. We do review and approvals for subdivision plans as part of the planning process. We prepare and submit regulatory compliance reports to the state agencies on a myriad of subjects. And then we provide administrative support generally to the department. So going on to our year in review. Of course, the king of our projects this year has been phases 1 and 2 of our street rehab program. We have at this point paved close to 10 miles of our city streets. To give you some context, we have 61 miles in our network. So roughly about 16% of our street network in 1 year. I think that's pretty good. Our raw water storage site selection, which I think you're all aware that we ended up looking at expanding the existing Mercer complex, and we're currently working on the RFP for bidding out the design for that project. We secured a $2.2 million loan for the Clay Street Reservoir cover replacement and leak repair project. We just opened bids for the construction of that project, and we're analyzing those at this week, and probably having a conference with the lowest bidder, and we'll see where we go from there. We completed the Lockrell Node sewer capacity study, which showed that our downstream network of collection pipes is adequate to service the node. So now we're moving forward on getting the design contract in place with an RFP. So year in review continued. We hired an environmental compliance tech, and we then revamped our TMDL compliance program, which is our, if you're not familiar with TMDL, that's our total maximum daily load, which is a measurement basically of the contaminants and such that are going into our drainage system. And we're under requirements with the state DEQ to take certain measures throughout the year to minimize the harmful elements that get into our streams and then ultimately into the Willamette River. And in fact, later this month, the next council meeting, you will be updated from a member of my staff about the TMDL program. So we also engaged an architect for the Public Works building project. And we kicked off the design for that project last week. The department is pretty excited about this project. We've been touring a couple of facilities with other communities to inform ourselves on this sort of a public works facility and what we might be able to accomplish with it by learning from others. Also, we've replaced 27 ADA ramps. Over this past year. In the last 2 years, we've done about 63. And that's an ongoing program of replacing ramps. And we'll be doing more next year. And then finally, we are the department that brings you the Sounds of Summer concert series. Back a couple of years ago, when Brian told department directors that we're all going to take on a community event, I think I was the first one to jump on the music because that was the funnest one in my mind. So anyway, just some pictures that I really like to show, and that's the before and after of some of our streets. I think you were probably all familiar, and at one point or not another drove Clay Street west of Fairview. And so the image on the left is what it used to look like, and the image on the right is what it looks like now. Same with South Church off of Main Street. Arguably the worst street in town. I think some might argue with that, but not anymore. It now looks like it does there on the right. And there's many other streets around town where improvements have been made, and you get the nice black asphalt that you see on the right. So just a few images of our department at work. The image on the left is Michael Pierce, our inspector, inspecting a sidewalk. And then on the right is the, of course, Sounds of Summer concert. We had 5 concerts this year, with the finale being Johnny Limbo and the Lugnuts, and was very pleased that we attracted over 800 people for that final concert. And in the 2 years we've been doing it, that was our record number so far. So things that where am I? Oh, we're going on to water distribution. I'm sorry, water distribution division. And this division is responsible for the Mercer Reservoir, which is about 1,250 acre-foot facility of storage of water. Our watershed is quite plentiful. That I think you've been told before. We only capture about 3 to 5% of what comes through the watershed. So there's a lot of water there. And as you all know, we're in the process of expanding that to about 4,900 acre feet. So 4-fold increase in the store for in the next several years. This division is also responsible for the intake pump stations, both old and new, for the water system. The water treatment plant, which just fun facts, has a maximum processing capacity of 8 million gallons a day. On a hot summer day, we might be processing up to 5 million gallons, and our average day is about 2.4 million gallons. And then in the real cold parts of the winter, we can get down to 2, maybe a little less than that per day. So we have a network of reservoirs around town for our finished water. First one on the list there is Clay Street. It's a network of 4 cells totaling about 4 million gallons of water storage. Our Main Street Reservoir holds another approximate 2 million gallons. We also have a reservoir up at the processing plant, and they're approximate 2 million. So all totaled, our finished water storage capacity is 8.1 million gallons. So we also, this division also responsible for the lower Bridlewood pump station, the upper pump station, Orchard Drive pump station, and our distribution system and any repairs, which we have about 70 miles of line in the ground. We also have an automated meter reading system comprised of about 6,000 meters spread all over town. And so we'll just move on now to year in review for this division. Our guys replaced about 350 feet of failed 4-inch water main line at Gerlinger Place. We updated our water emergency response plan for EPA regs. We replaced a failed pump motor at the water intake facility and installed over 1,200 new radios to update our automated metering system for the water meters. So just some more pictures. The one on the left is our water treatment plant, and on the right, that is our Clay Street Reservoir complex. And so the two square cells there are the ones that we're looking at rehabbing as part of this project that we received a $2.2 million loan for, but we will be replacing the covers on all 4 cells. Those are floating covers right now that have reached the end of their useful life. So just more pictures. The one on the right, no, left, I'm sorry, is our crews installing flashboards at the Mercer Reservoir at the dam, which raises the level of the water and increases our storage capacity. And then the picture on the right, some guys working on a main line. So we'll move on to the street stormwater wastewater collection division. They're responsible for a lot. First is the alley, street and alley maintenance, which includes street sweeping, curb painting, street signage, pothole filling, crack sealing, which I'm happy to say we accomplished quite a bit of crack sealing this year in tandem with all the other street work that we were doing. Weed spraying and tree trimming, snow plowing and de-icing when it's necessary. This division is also responsible for the stormwater drainage system, which includes the catch basins, rain gardens, storm line cleaning and repair. And we're also responsible for the sewer collection system, which we have about 68 miles of lines in the ground for that, which includes line construction, repair, inspection and line clearing, and then maintaining the River Drive and Bridlewood sanitary lift stations. And then finally, these folks get involved in some of our community events, namely Sounds of Summer, and Crazy Days, and Glow Run. The last two mainly traffic control functions there, putting up barricades and such. So year in review for the street, stormwater, and wastewater collections division. We installed a new air scrubber at the Bridlewood pump station, doing away with the odor problem that we used to have there. In addition to that, we needed to fashion a muffler to then take the sound out of the new scrubber unit we put in. But all in all, it worked out pretty well. And I think we've solved that problem. Longstanding problem. The guys also cleared the Forestry Creek drainage at Kingsborough Park. Maybe you've noticed that. I think it had been a number of years since that had been cleared, and so far with the rain that started, the water is moving on through, and we so far haven't seen the high water that we've seen the last couple of years, at least since I've been Public Works Director. So also implemented improvements for the south of Bridlewood drainage and on the south side of Bridlewood Drive, and then perform crack sealing on numerous streets. And then finally, the guys are responsible for restriping city streets after the streets are rehabbed, all except for center lanes. That's in the contractor's contract. So moving on to a few pictures of the guys doing asphalt repair and crack sealing. We want to have just all text. Curb repair, curb painting, And moving on now to the wastewater treatment division, and as I said earlier, we have a contract with Jacobs Engineering to operate the plant and to meet all of the standards that are required both by state and federal regulatory agencies. And they do a wonderful job for us. So I'm happy that they're there doing it. They bring a level of expertise that I respect a lot. Just some facts about our plant. It has a maximum processing capacity of 18 million gallons a day. And on an average day, we're processing about 3.5. So there's a lot of capacity there. However, when we get big rain events, that processing volume goes way up. So there are times when we need the capacity that we have. So year in review for the treatment plant. There were two failed, this is fun, isn't it? Two failed activated sludge flow sensors and meters were replaced. A failed guardrail on the effluent pump was repaired. New water flow gauge and gauging station was installed in Riverell Creek. Seems that some of the rain events we had in the last few years shifted the channel of the creek just a bit. And so then our flow meter we had wasn't getting the readings we needed to demonstrate the proper dilution of our water coming out of the plant into the creek. So we've got that fixed now and have a new station properly placed. Also, we've been performing some additional testing over what we normally do. They're tier 1 toxics, which has to do with aluminum, ammonia, and copper. So, and then this is just an interesting view of the plant. Jacobs calls it the water reclamation facility. And then just some other photos of the top one is some work being done on one of our clarifiers. The bottom one is the Jacobs supervisor, the gal who runs the facility, Claudia Spalding. She does a wonderful job, but here she's in the lab doing some required testing. Next division is our fleet maintenance division. They, of course, are responsible for the upkeep of all of our city vehicles, equipment, and apparatus. All told, they are responsible for about 150 vehicles, which also includes vehicles associated with 9 other agencies that we have intergovernmental agreements with to perform their fleet maintenance. So they get into all sorts of things, trucks and automobiles, heavy equipment, generators. We have several generators within our organization for various purposes. Of course, the IGAs that I spoke of here just a bit ago. And then they're also, this division is also responsible for the acquisition of our vehicles and equipment and then surplusing them out when we've replaced them. If you're interested, our IGAs are these folks all here. I won't read them all out. But these are folks that we do work for. And, I hope to be expanding that in the future, especially as we move towards a new facility. Our capabilities for fleet will be vastly improved with our new facility. And so those of us on the inside of all of this are pretty excited about that. Year in review for fleet. Of course, surprise, surprise, they serviced a lot of vehicles and many of them were with contracted agencies. And then they managed the purchase process for 2 lawnmowers and 4 city vehicles. Just some quick pictures there. The one on the left is our mechanic, Kent McKnight, probably not his best picture ever, but doing service on a vehicle. On the lower right is our street sweeper undergoing maintenance. Right now, our bigger vehicles cannot be serviced inside because we don't have the headroom in the facility. So they move outside, which is fine as long as the weather's good. But here again, that's one of the things that will be vastly improved when we can move all of that indoors. And this is another example of that. And we need to service the ladder truck. It's quite an undertaking. And it's miserable work if it's raining and cold. So fleet maintenance or facilities maintenance is the next division that we're going to look at. Of course, they're responsible for the maintenance and repair of our city buildings and properties, which include, of course, City Hall, the library, the fire department, ambulance building, the senior center, the aquatic center, the water treatment plant, the reclamation facility, city shops, and the firing range and dog kennels. So a lot. And Matt Butler, our maintenance foreman, does a great job for us on all of this. So their year in review, you may have noticed that the exterior of City Hall underwent some improvements this year with getting our windows painted. There were some maintenance and kind of rebuilding of the windowsills, a replacement of awnings, trim was upgraded, and our shop doors on the Jefferson side of the building, the Jefferson Street side of the building were replaced. I think those doors were original from 1936. Did not offer the security we needed anymore, especially since some of our police storage is in the basement. So we all feel much better about the new doors. Also, new interior paint and floors, some office renovations at the aquatic center, and the sidewalk in the back of the library was replaced. And then we needed to install new HVAC units at the water treatment plant and the Willamette Fiber building, which I think you all know we own, located right over on that corner. So this is Matt at work on some of his projects. And so finally, that's all of our divisions, but I wanted to give you kind of a sneak peek at what we're looking at in the year ahead. So we'll be putting together a phase 3 of our street rehab program. It'll be significantly smaller than what we saw this year. And that was part of our plan. If you'll recall back last year, early last year, when I presented the plan to you, it's a 6-year program with the first 2 years being the lion's share of the activity. So for the next 4 years, we'll be doing smaller projects, which will be a combination of state gas tax money, a little bit of our loan money left, and then of course our federal gas tax money. We'll be hobbling all that together and doing a few streets here and there. So then also, of course, we're working on the expanded raw water storage. Right now, we're working on permitting our water rights for the storage for the new expanded facility. We've been working on the permit for that that we'll be submitting to Oregon Water Resources here in the next month or two. So that is moving along. There, of course, we have the Clay Street Reservoir rehab project, which I spoke of a little bit earlier, where we opened bids and we're looking at evaluating those bids right now prior to any award. Also, we hope in the next year that we're able to replace the Clay Street water main line that runs from the Clay Street Reservoir out to Main Street, just Main Street, right? Yeah, not Jefferson. So it runs all the way down Clay Street right now. That line's been in the ground since I think 1947. A lot of the valves don't close anymore, and it's an old type of pipe with funky spring stuff inside that if you break into the pipe, it kind of unravels. So we're going to feel much better when we get that line replaced, and we're actively working on that now, and have the pipe actually on storage on a lot owned by the city on Clay Street right now. So that project will be moving forward in the next year. Walk Rail Node sewer extension design and bid, working actively on getting that out to bid right now. Of course, the Public Works building, we're working on the design now. Over the next year, of course, we'll be bidding it in construction. I do not anticipate that November of next year we'll be done with it, but I'm hoping we'd probably be 80% there at this point. Hoping to move in early 2024, January, February, somewhere in there. And then this coming year, we'll be doing a bunch more ADA ramp replacements. With that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to respond. If I don't know the answer, I'll pass it back here to my good friend Tom.
I'll point out, we've got a half an hour or so, so we've got plenty of time for all kinds of
All
questions,
right.
if that's
We wanna
okay
know.
with you.
On the Lock Rail sewer expansion, did I see that we're gonna extend it down Hawthorne and across
Yes.
the highway rather than, what was the reasoning behind that?
I believe, well, what was the reason? That predates me. Why we made that decision. You know, Tom?
To extend down Hawthorne
Yeah. it's a-
versus
other
which
route.
path, which other
Well,
path?
versus Lock Rail and the highway right there where the Dutch Brothers is going in. What, don't we have services right
So
there?
The Lock Trail node extends almost all the way over to Oakville Road, which is far, a lot farther past Lock Trail. So we'd be pumping it, we'd be gravity flow all the way to the east, pumping it back to the west and up to Lock Trail. Lock Trail also only has a 10-inch main line running down it right now. The end of Hawthorne by Academy is 12-inch. So we've got more capacity there.
So when Hawthorne connects to the Lock Rail node, it's more of a center point of that.
It's almost more on the east side.
Okay.
We're gonna go almost due north of Hawthorne, and that'll be right, really close on the east side of that Lock Rail node.
Okay.
And the lowest point, that's the low point, so it's more likely gonna have to be a lift station. Maybe gravity could work, but we'd be about 40 to 45 feet deep going underneath Ellendale, and it's just way too deep. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Bill and then Ken.
Others.
At one time, there was a lift station at the end of River Drive. Is that still there?
I don't believe if it's there, it's not
River
active.
Drive, yes. We have 2 lift stations in operation right now. We have one at Bridlewood, with pumps up Oakdale,
Oh, yeah.
and then we have one at River Drive.
Okay.
Right there about where Richards comes in on River
Yeah.
Drive, and it pumps like half a block. It's not a very long line, but it's what's necessary. We had another one on Academy, where the Greenway Mobile Home Park came down into it. Once we connected Hawthorne up to Academy, that picked up. Is Is there any thought of putting in curbs and sidewalks on West Clay Street?
Repairing them or?
Putting curbs and sidewalks?
Not at this point, no. We could do it, but there's no plan right now.
Typically, the property owners pay for that.
Pardon me?
Typically, the property owners pay for curbs and sidewalks.
Yeah, that would.
First ones.
that
Yeah, we'd
would-
probably have to do either LID or, yeah, probably what we would do, or bond them.
Yeah, that's certainly something that could be done.
Because
But the-
right now, the rainwater that comes down the street goes off of the properties.
Right.
We get curbs and sidewalks that funnel into the storm drains.
It would be a definite improvement.
But we would need to assess the property owners one way or the other, yeah.
More questions? Christian?
Can you talk a little bit about where Godsey Road is in the phase 3 of the street improvement program?
Godsey Road is in its own category for upgrade. Of course, we had when I started work here, we had inherited, Brian too, had inherited a funding package that I think was first put together probably 8 years ago now. And part of it was predicated on the Mint Valley facility, bringing jobs to that vicinity of the neighborhood. And that didn't happen, so that funding went away. And then when we tried to bid the project with the funding we had, we tried to bid the south part, including the bridge, earlier this year, and discovered that with the rapid rise in construction costs, we didn't have near the funding we needed. So Brian and I worked on a request to get a federal direct grant. That was denied earlier this year. So at this point, we are looking at and working with the ODOT to try to get that project listed in the state STIP and try to get some funding through the STIP sometime in the next few years.
Remind
that-
me what STIP means.
It's
State
the-
Transportation Improvement Program.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of the the governing document of improvements for ODOT. Anything that happens as far as improving their system is in the STIP, including local projects for local communities. So if you can get it into the STIP, you know, you're getting your project funded through the state.
And what happens if,
Go ahead. You got the floor.
what happens if that doesn't go through? What's the fallback plan?
We continue trying to fund it. Yeah, I can't tell you beyond that. I was a little frustrated with, you may have heard last November, Congress passed a huge infrastructure bill with all sorts of infrastructure programs in there. And I only found one that was even indicated, maybe it could be of benefit to us. It was called the Rural Communities Infrastructure Program. And looking into it, turns out it really doesn't help communities. It was all about state highways in rural counties. So although there were gazillions of dollars approved by Congress, none of them are coming to small rural communities. So we just continue to beat the bushes for that project. That's not really a rehab project like the ones we've been doing. It's a significant upgrade with new street, gutters, sidewalks, bike lanes, a brand new bridge, all of those improvements to upgrade that street with the hope of supporting future development.
What can the neighbors in those, there are several neighborhoods along that stretch of road. What can those neighbors do to support the city as they look for funding?
I imagine that there very well could be opportunities where we'll need to show community support. Oftentimes that is the case with granting programs. If that comes about, we'll certainly be looking to engage folks in the neighborhood to do that.
And I would say even through the STIP process, we're gonna get, support from the council, but also support from the communities as we go through that. Just to put some dollars and cents to what Gary's talking about is when we had scoped that project initially, it was around the $3 million mark. It's now over $8 million. And so it's just way out when we got to the final design and the estimates, it just way outpriced any funding that had been allocated towards that. I mean, we had the funding to do a $3 to $4 million project. We just don't have the money for the 8. And so we're chasing down the money. The good news is we have a full design, and that's helpful when you're looking at grants and other opportunities that way. So it's not like the work has been lost. It's just on hold until we can really track down those additional dollars. The immediate opportunity fund dollars, which were the ODOT funds that we're going to address the rail crossing in particular. That alone is about a $700 to $1 million project just to upgrade a rail crossing, which doesn't get used very often by the railroad, right? But that still needs to be a component of the overall project. We have looked at phasing the project and just doing like the south side versus the north side. And even at that, we don't have enough dollars to be able to just, phase it without doing a, very small segment, and that just looks silly. So we're trying to, we are actively finding opportunities and ways to address that, because it is a need. As we've fixed many of our problem children street with the street maintenance program, this is now, I would label, one of the worst roads in town.
Yeah. Absolutely.
At one time, that project was fully funded by MWAC. We got it fully funded. There's parts to it. Safe routes to schools are part of it. But we ran into a stumbling block with the railroad because the city thought the railroad was responsible for the maintenance. The railroad said, it's not us, it's you. We went back and forth. I would imagine since the football field's been put in, the water runoff in that ditch is probably significantly lower, because I think they funneled the water back over to Miller Avenue. But still, it was funded at one time.
Other questions? Larry?
I guess it's more towards Brian. If we had that old Mid Valley piece developed by a different entity, would it then kick back into the plan, or would it be a whole new?
So I think there's opportunities with a future user of the land that abuts Godsey Road. There's a couple parcels there that could be developed. And so, the immediate opportunity funds are driven primarily on job growth. And so if we have an employer that is, bringing jobs to our community, we could approach ODOT through the immediate opportunity fund program to try to leverage some dollars for them for future purpose. But the current agreement that we had with them has expired, and they've withdrawn that money.
I have a question. Apparently the bridge is now load limited. Is there any possibility of repairing that bridge fairly readily without spending millions of dollars to get it back up to speed?
You're up to date. Friday, I received notice from the state bridge engineer saying that we need to post that bridge at 5 tons, which we have the signs on order now. Part of the notice we received does detail potential repair options that we still need to evaluate. Just having received this on Friday, we'll be reevaluating what they've provided there, and if we can fix it, we will, if it makes sense in scale to what we're going to have to do to replace it. So, yeah, don't know yet if we can do it.
Is that right? Okay, good. Anything else? Brian's got a few words for us on water. Is that right? Water?
Not water, but 2 other topics.
Okay.
So one, there's been a little bit of conversation on social media around an itinerant merchant license application that we received this last Friday afternoon. The comments, online were, the city's backed up on permits and is not able to, issue this permit. So I just want to talk a little bit about the process for the itinerant merchant licensing. And some of the things that this particular applicant was, got hung up on in terms of the process. So first, when an applicant makes application for an itinerant merchant license, that's through my office and the city manager's office. And so our assistant, Sam Kaufman, will, provide the application form to the applicants, let them know what needs to be filled out. The application will also accompany a site plan for the itinerant merchant. Typically they locate in a parking lot or on someone's property in the commercial zones. And so we just want to know where they're going to be located. If they're connecting to any of the city services, we just need to know that type of information. And so Sam will walk them through what that site plan needs to have. And then also we require a certificate of liability insurance as part of the code requirement to make sure that they're insured. And so with this particular application, the certificate of liability insurance and the site plan were not provided. And so we let the applicant know at the time of when they submitted that those 2 pieces of information would have to be provided. They did provide the same day the certificate of liability insurance, or at least had made contact that was going to come. I believe we received it today, or we'll get it by tomorrow. But the site plan had not yet been delivered. I don't know if it came in sometime this afternoon, but we're still waiting on that. So once we receive all the information, we have a complete application, we will route that around to our city staff, including our independent insurance agent, to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to see it, provide comments. If there are review comments, like if they're making a connection to a city service, we need to know that. Or they'll provide conditions of approval as part of their comments. But typically those comments come in within a couple of days of us routing the application, and we're able to move forward pretty quickly on these. As we wrap that application, it also goes down to the police department. In our code, we require businesses that are talked about in the business section of the municipal code, which includes itinerant merchants, to obtain a background check, a criminal background check. The purpose of a criminal background check for an itinerant merchant, as we can kind of decipher from the code, because it doesn't speak specifically to this in the code, is that itinerant merchants really have a low kind of barrier of entry to operate within the city limits of Dallas. And they're if they have a truck and they sell food and they get the county license, and they get this itinerant merchant license, they're off to the races. There's an inherent purpose of government is to make sure we're protecting the people that we serve. And so with the criminal background check, we want to make sure that the person who, if they have, an itinerant merchant who sells, ice cream and candy, lollipops, that maybe encourages, kids to come. We want to make sure that this isn't a person who is a, a convicted felon, involving, crimes against children, right? Recent, like within the last 5-10 years. If it's someone who is convicted of identity theft, through credit card, fraud, we want to make sure that that's not something that's recently occurred, right? And is now selling products to people. So we look at the criminal background check just to see, hey, what have they done in their past? Is it recent? Is it relevant to the work that they're wanting to do now? So that's why we have the criminal background check as part of that process. The review process I talked about with staff, including the criminal background check, can take up to 5 to 7 business days. So we inform applicants when they apply that it will take that much time to get this back. That's relatively quick in my experience. And so that's what we do require. And so, again, the applicant was, I think, surprised by the time frame, surprised by the background check requirement. Having operated food trucks in other cities, the background check requirement's not been required in other places. But, again, local control allows cities to come up with their own rules. And so that's just what we require. I will say, so this particular itinerant merchant is now wanting to relocate to Monmouth until they can come back to Dallas once they get their permits approved from us. And so they're doing that. But I will say, we looked at other cities around us, Monmouth, Independence in particular, and those cities also, have similar licensing requirements. Both Monmouth and Independence have either a business registration or a business license program that they require all businesses to obtain. They also charge a fee for that. So we don't charge a fee in Dallas for our itinerant merchant license. Neither Monmouth or Independence, I believe, require a background check as part of their process. And so we're a little bit different there. But there are different requirements, in different cities, but all of us require in one form or fashion our own local permit for food trucks. So just mention that. So if you have any additional questions on our process, what we require, certainly open to have that conversation tonight or in the future. But that's kind of where we are there. So I'll stop on that topic. Are there any questions or thoughts?
Is it possible for, sorry.
No, I saw you.
Okay, is it possible for us to have on the application itself, the expectations, the timeline expectations, so that it's not,
Like a surprise?
yeah,
Sure.
I don't want to say a surprise.
Yeah.
But there's no open to, was it 5 to 7 business days? Was it 5 to 7 calendar days? Did I
Mhm.
forget to tell somebody?
Yeah.
It's like right there on the front page of the application.
Yeah, that would be easy for us to do. We do include on all of our permits the relevant code sections so that people can see, okay, hey, I have to, I expect to go through a background check, or I have to provide insurance, that sort of information. So all of that's included in the application form, and I think it's reasonable for us to put down, expected time frame, for processing of this permit is, 5 to 7 business days or whatever. So.
Can we also have it clear for processing of a complete application?
Yep.
Because then that doesn't, I can turn in an application with 5 words on it, and that
Right.
doesn't give me 5 days.
Right. Yeah. And I think we want to be careful, again, I would not lock us into it has to be 5 to 7
Yeah.
days, but just estimated time frame, just to give them a sense of this isn't an over the counter permit.
Right.
Because again, we don't know just what our staffing is going to look like when we're receive the application, when we route that around. I might have, 4 of the 7 staff members gone for a week.
Sure.
And, then you're putting a lot of pressure on them when they first get back. Hey, make sure you look at that permit number 1. We do that anyway, but we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we're not able to achieve the timeframe that we set. But I think we can reasonably put on there, hey, this is what you should expect.
And then my second question is, what is the exceptions criteria for the background check? So if I submit a itinerant merchant license application and I don't pass my background check,
Mhm.
and I want that reviewed, I want that how does that get reviewed?
Lane, I want to look at you really fast. Is there an appeal process for itinerant
Ooh,
merchants?
That's the word I was looking for, appeals. Thank you.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think there is.
Usually these things are moving fast enough that, if there's not an explicit appeal process, then their remedy would be what's called a writ of review in circuit court. But I mean, I'm not sure who the appeal would be to, council.
Yeah, that's
then-
what I'm going to look up.
Then you'd want to have some criteria by which you would assess an appeal.
I don't know that you need to give me an answer. I just think that that's an important thing since it's not a norm for our area across the regular cities. And we don't want this to become a way that Dallas can discriminate against people who may have a criminal history. We want to make sure if I have a criminal history, we want people to be able to
Yeah.
rehabilitate and build a life.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that there's something there that's equally safe to the rest of our neighbors. And I don't know that there needs to be an answer tonight, but something that we think about.
Sure, I can let you know that there's not, I just looked up in the code, we don't have an appeal process for a denial of an itinerant merchant license.
Emily is trying to communicate something. What was that, Emily?
The general business license for an applicant whose application for a license has been denied.
Yeah.
They can appeal within 30 days to the council.
Okay,
And that's in 7.06.
okay,
There you
that
go.
applies
Yeah.
across. that
All
chapter.
business, all business
Okay,
licenses,
all
yeah.
right.
Yep.
We've just never had one, I don't think.
So
Yeah.
So for example, if an itinerant merchant applied and I found something in their criminal background check that I felt was not conducive to them operating their itinerant merchant, use that they wanted, and I denied that permit,
Mhm.
they could appeal that to the city council within 30 days.
And then you would bring that.
I would bring that application to you. You would then consider it and make a decision.
Emily, you're amazing. Thank you for figuring that out on your phone on the fly. That's applause worthy. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. That's great.
Show off.
Yeah, no, that is not showing off. She did show you up a little bit though.
That's good. Well,
Thank
you
you.
know, Elaine only has chapters 1 through 6 memorized.
Yeah, right.
Great.
In his head. The second one is a topic, and Lane, I bring this up, so I apologize because this has legal stuff to it. But I just want to make the council aware. I was made aware earlier today. I serve on the local public safety coordinating council for Polk County, and they brought up this topic, and it was a federal judge issued an order recently. It was Judge Mossman.
Oh, wait,
And so this is pertaining to
the mink case.
I believe so.
Yeah.
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 And so this is pertaining to stay limits at the state hospital.
Yeah.
And so what the issue was is that people with mental illness issues that were arrested for crimes, they were being housed in jails until they could make their way to the state hospital. And the time that they were staying in jail, there was an order signed several years ago from a judge that kind of set a time of 7 days is what it should be before they go to the state hospital. The state hospital was having challenges accommodating that because the capacity of the hospital was full and they were not releasing patients fast enough who were becoming restored is what they call that, to then be able to be competent enough to accept and work with an attorney in their criminal defense. And so people were spending more time in jail. So Judge Mossman issued the order that put limits on how long someone can stay in the state hospital before they are required to be released back to the county. And so in that, the limits are 90 days for misdemeanor, 6 months for nonviolent felonies, and 1 year for violent crimes under ballot measure 11. So that's the new term limits. The state is starting to roll this out. And so we will see some people who are at the state hospital be released before their treatment's completed, to make room for people that are in jail needing to go to the state hospital. So just wanted to make everyone aware of that, that order that came out, just so you're aware of that. And we might be seeing some people coming back to Polk County. Right now, we have 10 patients at the state hospital from Polk County. We average, on any given month, about 6 or 7. So we're a little high right now. And we send on average about 2 to 3 patients through the criminal justice system to the state hospital. So that's kind of our average, but just know that this is, an issue of concern for that coordinating council. And I just wanted to make the council aware of that. Lane, I don't know if you have any
Yeah,
additional
yeah,
feedback.
it's a real problem. The case is not finished. There are still arguments to be had in it, but that's where it stands right now. And this, it's a real concern for hospitals. There was a case I heard about last week in Salem. A gentleman was released from the state hospital under this order at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, returned, I think, to his sister's house in Salem. Left us with no supportive services or anything else, left his sister's house, was arrested by 3 o'clock in the afternoon and transported to Salem Hospital Emergency Department because they didn't know what to do with him, where this person sat. And so hospitals are very concerned. Hospitals are engaged in this case because a lot of these people will end up ultimately at the hospitals because the police can't take them anywhere else. And there's no facilities for them. And they're offending on the streets. So yeah, this is going to be a real difficult issue for communities to work through until such time as the state develops the capacity to manage this population. Yeah, there's no easy answer for it. And we are consumers of sort of this problem at the state hospital level.
So just want to make you all aware.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for the good news.
Yeah, like I
sorry.
said, it wasn't the best of news, but
Nope.
All right. We still have, still part of the thing is Public Works. I have a couple of quick questions for you, I think. Forestry Creek, you mentioned had been kind of cleaned out. I managed to tour that neighborhood rather extensively here recently, and I heard several complaints about that. Do you think that's probably solved the problem for this rainy season? Is flooding, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so far so good. I think it probably will make
Okay.
a marked improvement. We've not seen, rains in earnest yet this fall going into winter. But
Hmm.
I think the water's going to move along a lot faster than it has.
Oh, good. Well, there's some sensitivities out there to what happened the last couple of years.
Declare victory yet. Proof will be in the pudding when.
It will.
Proof will be in the water when it comes down.
Are we doing COVID testing down at the wastewater plant, sampling for that?
There are, Oregon State University is doing testing and Arizona State University is doing testing both at our plant. We continue to get weekly reports. The last 3 weeks, I forget which one it was. It was the lowest I've ever seen. It's kind of just dropped way down.
Okay, good. That seems like a really good indicator for a community. Another question, we have a couple of gravel roads still in Dallas, Oak Street maybe and Howe maybe.
Yeah, there's a
Couple, they're less than a mile, I'd say, between them. Are we at least looking at providing pavement on these gravel roads?
We are. I hope to get those paved, if not next year, next couple of years. It all depends on how much funding we can cobble together for phase 3. Not done that evaluation yet. But that is definitely on our radar screen.
That sounds good. Last thing, you may not know the answer, but is Johnny Limbo coming back next year? Are we contracting for him? That's what we think. And we hope. Thank you for orchestrating that. That was a pun there, I guess. Orchestrating the concert series. Johnny Limbo is always a huge hit. And we,
Take credit for it, it's the staff that really made that happen.
okay. Thank you. Anything else this evening before we adjourn and then re-adjourn at 7 for a city council meeting? All right, we'll see you all at 7 o'clock. The big hand is on the 12, so off we go with another interesting, exciting, and purposeful Dallas City Council meeting here on Monday, November 7th. We've been doing this now for as of this month for 148 years and 86 years in this very room. So you're part of history when you're here. And welcome to our guests from out of town. We're glad to see you. Secretary, call the roll.
Council President Schilling.
Here.
Thank you. Council Briggs.
Here.
Councilor Collins.
Present.
Councilor Crawford.
Here.
Councilor Dunham is excused this evening. Councilor Fitzgerald.
Here.
Councilor Hahn.
Here.
Councilor Verdon is excused this evening as well, and Councilor Woods.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done. Good. I hope everybody can vote who's legally able. I think there's a ballot drop box right around the corner here. We can drop it in there until what, 8 o'clock tomorrow. I was looking at where I used to live, Bear County, Texas, which is San Antonio. And for 2 million people, they have one drop box. And we have 5 drop boxes in Polk County with 89,000 people, one of which is a cardboard box up in the Falls City in the Frank's store. Interesting contrast, I'd say. Off we go to introductions, recognition, and proclamations. Brian, do you have an introduction out there for me?
We do. So I will invite Chief Brumfield to come up.
Introduce Jenna Markel. She is one of our newest full-time hires on MS. She's actually dual roles. She's a firefighter. So she started her career in Staten, at Santiam Hospital. Santiam Hospital has one of the few services in the emergency department for the hospital. So she started there in 2019, and she then encouraged herself to join the and Tomsville, and that was in 2020. So she's been experienced there. So she joined our service full-time in June of 2021. So she started there part-time, and then June 1st, 2022, she got her full-time service. We're very happy to answer your
Welcome. We're glad to have you. Our service has really got terrific ratings. We get lots and lots of thank you. So you're joining a great group. That's it, I think, for introductions tonight. We'll have some more in the future. I do have a proclamation, and that's the designation of the month of November 2022 is Native American Heritage Month, and I'll read it. Whereas our nation annually celebrates November as National Native American Heritage Month, the time we reflect on the rich tapestry of indigenous peoples and honor their many triumphs and sacrifices, whereas Native Americans are descendants of the original indigenous inhabitants of what we now know as the United States, and whereas Native Americans have enriched our local heritage and continue to add all aspects of our community through the generosity of the rich culture, spirit, and commitment to the sustainability of the land, and whereas our entire country is blessed by the character and strength exemplified by Native Americans who have answered the call of service in our armed forces in the greater numbers per capita than any other group in the United States. And whereas during the month of November, we at the City of Dallas will honor our Native peoples in their ancestral home by displays at the Dallas Public Library. Now, therefore, I, Brian Dalton, Mayor Dallas, do hereby proclaim November in our much beloved community to be National Native American Heritage Month. Really great group of people, Grand Ronde tribes, great to work with. We're so fortunate that so many tribal members live in Dallas, to include the tribal chairman woman. All right, on we go. Public comment period. Now that's when you can come forward and give us your thoughts for up to 5 minutes. And give us your name and your address and carry on for 5 minutes. And Ann wants to be first.
The Friends of the Dallas Aquatic Center has given 2 pool party packages value of $450 each to some auctions recently. One was for Bambinos, it was a live auction, and the other was for the Panthers Booster Club over in Central School District. And that was a live auction too. That one went for $525. And the one for Bambinos went for far above the value of the package, which was $450. Now we say, well, what does that mean? Well, that means that these people that made money for their organization with our pool party pack. And when they are redeemed, Friends of Dallas Aquatic Center will pay the Aquatic Center $450 for the party. So it's kind of a win-win. They get money for their organization and we pay the pool for the party. And we have 4 of those to give away every year. And of course, let's see, that's 2 this year, and then it's almost the end, so there'll be 4 again next year that we'll be giving away. We hope to give one to the Dallas Booster auction when that happens, I think next fall. Also, there are 3 kids signed up for the next lifeguard class, and that's really good because on Saturday they had to close the pool to the rec swim because 2 lifeguards called in sick. And they had 5 parties going on, so they closed it to the public so that so all the parties could continue to go on because they were all been paid for. But if they had the other 2 lifeguards, the public could have also come. So that's an ongoing problem. We're also having trouble finding a lift to replace the 2 that are broken at the pool. We're now thinking the portable lifts that we keep looking at, they say the edge of the pool isn't strong enough to hold the portable lift with the up to 300-pound person in it. So what we're thinking of doing is just replacing the one at the therapy pool. So, because that's the one most people who are in there for rehab, that's mostly the pool that they want to use. That might, I've heard, Ike said 2,000 to 3,000, Gretchen said 7,000. But we really want to go ahead and get that done so the people that really need it can get in that pool. So everything's going well. I was swimming today. The 81.1 degrees was a lot warmer than it's been on other days because it was so cold outside. And on my way to the pool, I happened to go down Hankel Street. And I really like Hankel because it's wide open. And then I just turned right and I go right down to the pool. And the first time I went down Hankel after those humps were put in, I was so thrilled because I live on Hayter Street and they come out of that park and they just went slow down, went over the humps. There's one right by the park. There's one just a little bit further down so they can't get up any speed before they have to slow down again to go over it. I was really pleased to see that. And when I got home, I called Megan at Public Works. I didn't talk to her, but and I left a message. I wanted to talk to her about speed humps on Hayter Street, because boy, we really need them there too. So our neighborhood watch group you might be seeing a petition from us about that sometime soon. But anyway, everything's going well at the pool. And
Thank you, Ann.
yeah.
Good to hear
Almost
from
time to
you.
renew all the banners. We're going to be sending letters out.
Oh, good.
For next year. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Let's see here. How about Chief Hurdle? Fred, come on up. Good to see you.
My name's Fred Hurdle. I'm Fire Chief of Southwest Polk. And we were fortunate enough to celebrate our 75th anniversary this year. And so we were pretty excited about that. We had a pretty good sized party out at one of our new stations and invited everybody. Dallas Fire and EMS was kind enough to come and stand by and help us out with that event. And And as part of that event, over here tonight, the board decided that they wanted to honor the city of Dallas for being part of us and part of them, as the history may go, for 72 plus years. And so if I could approach the council, I'd like to hand everybody a challenge coin in remembrance of the 75th. If I could do that.
Sure.
We're just here to say thank you for the honor of being part of us and being part of you and helping each other out for 75 years.
Great.
These don't have monetary value over $25, do they?
It's 50 lanes. 50.
Thank you.
They can have 2 coins.
Nice
Okay.
looking.
That's right.
Thank you.
No more, yeah. You're welcome. I'd be remiss if I didn't give them to your great staff who have helped us immensely in our 75 years. Thank you all.
Good. We like your new fire stations out there. They're really nice.
Thank you.
They're an inspiration for us. Okay. Anybody else want to come visit with us? Anybody on the phone?
No, Mayor.
Okay, thanks. Thank you all for doing this for us. On to the consent agenda, you find on page 4, consisting of a number of things. Approval of the city council minutes of October 17th, acknowledgement of the Building Grounds Committee on September 28th, acknowledgement of the October 18th Park and Recreation District Formation Committee minutes, our city attorney contract extension, and the September 2022 financial report. Anybody wish to withdraw any of those for discussion? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve. Bill makes that motion and second by Michael. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Didn't hear anything, so the motion passed unanimously. Congratulations, Lane, for
Thank you,
a
Mr.
contract
Mayor.
extension.
2 more years.
Good. On we go to reports and comments from mayor and council members. Anybody have anything for us this evening? Any discussions? Okay, we had a great Halloween event out there. We think there were at least 2,000 people in downtown Dallas. Everybody dressed to the nines with some pretty fancy costumes. If you all could make it down there. Despite the rain, we had that large number of people. And if it hadn't been raining, we'd probably had another 1,000 people. It was just a remarkable group. And the merchants came out and gave a lot of candy away. We gave a lot of candy away. What, 2,000 pieces?
Yeah, at least. A lot of candy.
A lot of
candy.
candy.
How many of those did you eat?
About half.
Yeah, anyway, a very, very well attended event. Everybody seemed real happy about it. There were no incidents at all that I know about, and just a really good thing. We had 40 scarecrows out on at the poles out there this year, 40. Last year we had 22, and we thought that was a success. So I hear we're shooting for 50 next year. So people were really happy with those scarecrows. Anything else? There's a Bill.
I think along that same line, we need to recognize Dallas Fire for the fact that they had their trucks out and providing candy to 4 other locations in the community.
Yeah, great. The fire department, we really appreciate what you all did a lot. The whole staff contributed in one way or another, but the fire department in particular. The Jeep Club too here in town put on quite a show. They filled Court Street here with quite a show, I have to say. And I guess if any one particular event on that evening, it was probably the Jeep Club's attractions, from Sasquatch to various scary things. One other thing, I don't know if you see it or not, but there used to be a really ugly looking roundabout. We have a roundabout in Dallas down there by on Walnut Street, down by Roger Jordan Park, and it used to look pretty not so good, and now it looks great. They put some tall grasses in there and some rearranged some of the landscaping, and it just looks great if you haven't seen it yet. Anything else? Hearing nothing. All right, off we go to city manager and staff. Brian.
All right, thank you, Mayor Dalton. So we have 3 items on the agenda. The first is item 7A, and it is the Hinkle Street speed humps conversation. So I'm not going to read everything in the staff report because presumably everyone has done that. But just to bring everyone up to speed, that wasn't. Anyways, I haven't had dinner yet.
You'll get over it.
I'll move on.
You'll be all right.
The city council has certain powers that are outlined in the code in regards to traffic. And there are like 6 or 7 of those. All of those have been delegated to the city manager, except the last one, which is section 600.000G, which is exercise general supervision over the administration and enforcement of all traffic provisions. So anything not contained in A through F falls under that last category. Speed humps are one such item that fall under that last category. So when we paved Hinkle Street, we came back in and installed speed humps. There was some miscommunication between staff on what was supposed to be there. But regardless, that's what we have today. So because those were installed and we didn't have the authority to do that, we're coming to the council to say, hey, you have these speed humps. What do you want to do with them? And so there are 4 options that staff has outlined as potential actions or inaction that the council can take. There's probably additional items or options if the council wants to think of some of those, you can. Maybe you already have, but I'll run through the 4 that we've outlined. The first is retain the speed humps as constructed. There are pros and cons with each of the different options. Pros of keeping the speed humps as are constructed is there's no additional cost to doing that. We've already spent the money to put them in. It does have the effect of reducing the traffic speeds on the road. As people get used to them, some of the cons maybe will become abated a little bit, especially the first one, creates obnoxious noise for nearby residents. I have received complaints from a couple of the residents that live right outside of where these speed humps were installed. When you have a new traffic element added to a street, it takes time for people to kind of recognize it's there. It took me just the first time I ran over them at 25 miles per hour to recognize that they're there. I think other people are finding the same thing. But if you can imagine like a trailer being pulled behind a truck, maybe with some equipment on it, can make some noise going over that, or maybe even a trailer that doesn't have anything, just an empty trailer can make noises that rattles going across those speed humps. It creates conflict for public safety emergency response, having to slow down to go over those speed humps. You don't want to do a high-speed chase going over speed humps. So there are some public safety concerns from an emergency response standpoint with these. There is some liability increases for claims of vehicle damage. While we haven't experienced any of that in Dallas, to my knowledge, at least not recently, that has been an issue in other cities as I've talked with them regarding speed humps. And then street sweepers sometimes have issues with speed humps. I don't know if we've tested ours out yet, but that is a potential con of keeping them as they sit today. Option 2 is to remove the speed humps. So again, the pros of this is it reduces that liability of potential claims for vehicle damages. It does avoid the street sweeper conflicts. It enables the expected public safety delivery in terms of response times, not having to slow down for them. It does eliminate that noise created by the use of the speed humps. The cons of that second option is that it does cost around $10,500 to remove the speed humps. You're also patching a newly paved street, which reduces the lifespan of that new paving. It's just not as simple as grinding out what's there. We have to grind out, there's a tack material that we put down, so we're actually going to likely damage the street as we go in. So we would saw cut on both sides of that and then patch in new asphalt. So, and that again compromises the lifespan of that street. It does, another con is it enables speeding vehicles back onto Hinkle Street, which is what we were experiencing previously. And one of the reasons why we put the speed humps in the first place. Item 3, option 3 is to remove the speed humps and install raised crosswalks elsewhere on Hinkle Street. The pros of this is that you, with the raised crosswalks, would reduce the traffic speeds. You have consistency in the types of traffic calming devices used elsewhere in the city. We have raised crosswalks on Academy Street, 2 on Walnut and 1 on Loch Riel. So this would, be in alignment with those. And it also increases pedestrian safety. Hinkle Street is a long, straight street. with not a lot of crosswalks, marked crosswalks on it. I don't believe there are any marked crosswalks. And so by having a raised crosswalk, you enable a place for pedestrians to go to be able to cross the street. We are taking a lot of kids from the neighborhood on Uglo. There's a lot of apartments there. You have Gala Park, and then the schools further to the south on Lock Rail. So having a better pedestrian improvement is a good thing. The con for that is it's the most expensive option. It's a minimum of $50,000 to be able to remove the ones that are there and put in these raised crosswalks. And again, you're patching the newly paved street where you remove the existing speed humps, which reduce the lifespan of that new paving. The fourth option is a little bit of a hybrid of number 3. It's expanding the speed humps in their current location. So what this would look like would be to take the speed humps that exist, make them wider so that they have kind of the feel of a raised crosswalk, but we wouldn't actually install a crosswalk over the enlarged speed hump. When you have a raised crosswalk, the difference between that and a speed hump is that the raised crosswalks go from curb to curb so that people can cross without having to have a valley between where the speed hump is and the curb. And so by not making them crosswalks, we're not having to deal with the or accommodate the drainage issues. When you have that crosswalk go all the way across, you have to have catch basins and storm drainage facilities on both sides. It's currently not there in its location, so it'd have to be retrofitted in if you made those raised crosswalks. We also don't think we have the room at the current locations where the driveways are to make them function like crosswalks and meet safety standards. And so, but by just expanding them into larger speed humps, you could provide better markings, letting people know that they're there, like we do with the raised crosswalks, just not have the functionality of a crosswalk. Pros of doing that is it does not affect the completed paving. It reduces the negative noise impacts. It reduces the traffic speeds. It's a similar design to the raised crosswalk, but not the same function, as it doesn't allow the crossing of pedestrians. It is better for public safety response than the current speed humps because you can navigate a speed hump or a raised crosswalk design better than and at faster speeds than you could a speed hump. And it does reduce the city's liability for potential claims from vehicle damages. The cons are there is an additional cost. We have not evaluated the cost of increasing the size of that. So that's something for us to look into still. And the other con is it does not improve the pedestrian environment for crossings on Hinkle Street. So given kind of those 4 options, staff's recommendation is to select option number 4, which is to enlarge the size of the current speed humps that are there. It gives you the most pros at the least. I'll go and stop there. This is a council decision, so whatever you want to do is what staff will do.
All right, who wants to lead off? Ken?
When you say enlarge the hump, is that in height?
It's not, it's in width.
Okay,
And
wider.
does that include paint?
We would put paint similar to what you have at the raised crosswalks. We just would not have a crosswalk on top. So you would see like the white chevron paintings kind of indicating, hey, there's a bump here. And we would include the signage as
Some
well.
cities put stripes on them too, on the hump itself. And they use different terminology rather than just hump. You might call it speed bumps or something.
Yep. Yeah, we would come up with everything you're talking about.
Brian, so is the difference between 3 and 4 just the striping?
So no, with 3, you're creating that crosswalk. So you have the paving would go all the way to the curb, where right now the speed humps taper off before the curb. So that way you have a valley between where the speed hump is and the curbs, to allow stormwater to pass by.
Okay.
Kim?
Where are they in proximity to crosswalks?
Yeah, there are no crosswalks on Hinkle. There are some.
There is a feeling.
Is there one?
Well, it's not painted. It's not.
I don't think it's painted. I mean, there's
no painted.
yeah, there's no painted crosswalks. Yeah, there's the curbs that allow you to cross there, but there's not a marked crosswalk on Hinkle. Right. So there's Uglo, which doesn't align on the north and the south legs of Uglo. You have Stone Street is there, which one of the speed humps is near Stone. But none of the speed humps that are proposed would line up with where we would naturally want to put a crosswalk.
Michael and Christian.
How much public input was done?
We didn't do any public input as part of putting the speed humps in. Yeah, it was.
Complaint driven. I personally would like to see within 300 feet both directions of the road, the pulling of the local residents. That's before we do anything, because I mean, I've got a lot of streets I could say we should put speed humps, bumps, crosswalks in. We heard Ann say that today. Are we gonna put it on every street? Or should we just, instead of putting speed bumps or humps or whatever they are called, reduce the speed limit to 20?
Yeah. Yeah, we have, I would say that we've received some requests for additional speed humps in different parts of the city. So that's an outcropping of putting them in on Hankels. We've now seeing requests for other places as well. And so, but no, I think that that's a fair point and one that easily could be accomplished with the survey.
Personally, living next to a crosswalk, a raised crosswalk, I would prefer it be gone. Because I can think with just dropping our speed limits, the police and the fire, I mean, the police can take care of the issue as far as that. Because actually I've seen the crosswalks width is actually increasing the speed. Because everybody that knows that drives in a larger vehicle, the fire trucks can go across at a higher rate of speed across a raised crosswalk, or a speed bump does require you to slow down. So, but they are a lot noisier, both are noisier.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to ask, is if we could sort of put a pause on our decision-making and actually ask the neighbors who live there, and make sure that we're actually, I like your terminology, Michael, is let's actually poll the neighbors who live there and give them an opportunity to speak. So the second thing I was going to ask is there a way to simply identify that, hi, here comes the speed bump, slow down, and just to notify people that that's coming? Because it feels like a sign is maybe a much cheaper way of doing all of this.
Yeah, and we have signs at both of the speed humps, just immediately preceding the speed hump. And then they're large signs. I mean, they're hard to miss.
So Lane, does that alleviate any of the city's potential liability?
Oh, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and I would argue too, probably that the decision to place a speed hump as a discretionary decision, that I would argue is immune from liability under the Oregon Tort Claims Act, but that's something that lawyers argue to judges about. So, but yeah, I don't see the liability as a huge issue for the city.
Kurt, Kim, then Ken.
And those can just be striped, just the way they are, you could just like a long reflective. stripe,
Yes,
so
yeah,
it
they
goes like a secondary.
they can be, and the plan is to do that. We just didn't want to do anything before we came to the council and figured out what you want to do with them.
Ken.
Years ago, we talked about putting speed humps on Montreal, north of Hankel and south of Hankel. And it was decided at that time when the council said no, because we had trouble with fire trucks and ambulances and police cars having to slow down for these. And they were trying to do their job, so we said no. That, to me, I think it's the last time we ever talked. They got put in by the aquatic center because of crosswalks and stuff. Hankel's always been a fast street. And one time, this is digress a little bit, down at Walnut Street, there's a lot of people complaining about speeding cars. So we tested the area and found out that most of the speeders were the local residents.
Yeah, Brownwood Drive was like that.
Yeah, especially going downhill. So think see what the neighbors want, and then go from there.
Bill.
I think that would be the key, is to poll the neighbors with the idea that the city is considering making them larger to lower the sudden impact of the bump, and leave them, only expand it. After we receive that feedback, I would definitely be in favor of widening them. Presently, within the last month or so, I've observed at least 2 motorcycles doing 70 miles an hour down La Creole. So I really don't think that posting a sign saying you're in 20 miles an hour is gonna stop the people that are, or violating those incidences.
Anything more?
So what, go ahead.
Oh, I don't want to just on widening and I want to on removal also.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, what I'm hearing here is that we'll do a polling. Do you want to do a 300-foot buffer from each of the speed humps? Is that a sufficient buffer of people that we'd be polling? Do you want to go larger, 500 feet?
I would say larger because the people that live there is gonna have to go over these every day.
Okay, so we can do a 500-foot buffer from each of the speed humps. Unless you want to go larger.
I would
I'm like an
recommend-
auctioneer. What do you want?
I'd recommend we do the whole block or the whole street, because there aren't a lot of homes significant to where those
Yeah.
humps are.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, in all reality is the squeaky wheel received the grease, and, you know, maybe there's only one or two people that were adamant about having him there. And so I think we should consider the entire block, and I think we should look at Lock Rail.
All right, so what we'll do for the buffer is we'll do all the properties along Henkel. Going a little bit beyond that is there are properties that are north of Henkel and some that are south of Henkel that funnel into Henkel. So we'll go a couple 100 feet north and south to bring in those residents. Does that make sense?
I don't think you need to go north and south. I think it affects the people on Henkel. And the reason why I was limiting it to the 300 feet is you're talking about the people that are most affected by those pumps.
Okay.
Which are the people closest to it. So you start.
I guess my question was, I understand that there was quite a bit of evaluation done. The police department did speed analysis. The public works did traffic counts. So it wasn't just a spur of the moment that those two appeared.
Jerry?
Yeah, I'm gonna suggest kind of an extended thing too, is that it looks to me like we're opening a can of worms with all, you know, lots of streets are going to now want speed humps. And so the city needs to engage in some kind of a criteria for when these may be placed, not shall be placed, but, you know, so that probably still needs to be a city council decision, or
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I do think that, you know, as we're starting to see more requests come in for these because of the ones that were installed, there should be a defined set of criteria that you evaluate. Does it make sense to have a speed hump in this location, given our criteria, and then still retaining discretion? Because I don't think you want to be put in a position of it meets A, B, C, D. So you put it in, right? It's A, B, C, D, and then E is council says yes, right? Or no. And so, yeah. If I can get consensus on what your buffer wants to be, I'm hearing all of Henkel, or with a shortened version of just people on Henkel. What does the council want?
I personally think all Henkel.
I agree.
All right, okay, so we'll do all of Henkel properties,
head nods.
abutting Henkel, yeah, that's what I'm
Okay.
seeing too. And then we'll pull them with two options. One, a larger width speed hump, or removal of the speed humps. Anything else?
So not the crosswalk?
Not the crosswalk is what I'm hearing.
All right.
All right, so that's what I can do. And
One
we'll
last
bring,
thing, if I'm,
yeah, go ahead.
before you go away from that, I want to say, Ken and I remember that these kind of things used to come before the council from time to time, and there was a bias of the council to not approve them as a rule, as I recollect. And that's why they asked that these things come before the council, not just be made up in the street department or something like that. Because it's opening this, I think somebody said, Terry, maybe a can of worms. where I get maybe every year, 3 or 4 different people saying, I need a speed bump on my street. And I assume you hear it. You could get dozens of requests that people say, well, if you just rally your neighborhood within 300 feet of your where you want it, you'll get a speed bump from the city. And I'm not sure you want to open that.
And you also maybe talk with the school bus company. Because those things really bounce over speed bumps.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and the snowplow.
I can talk to the school buses and get their opinion.
Boom.
So we'll pull the citizens along Hankel. And we'll bring this results of that back to the council on December 5th, just to give us adequate time to get responses from everyone. So
Well, thank you.
that'll be the plan on that. All right, thank you. That's good. Moving on to the next item. Which is on page 50 of your agenda. This is the public contracting process amendment. The Public Administration Committee recommended that the city council revise the city code requiring the city manager to receive city council authorization for purchases exceeding $150,000. This was discussed at a council meeting, I believe 2 meetings ago. The decision at the time, we were missing a few councilors then that we wanted to delay a decision until a future meeting. So we're back tonight, still missing a couple councilors, but I'll go ahead and kind of leave it at that. There's again pros and cons to that decision. Right now, the city council authorizes the city manager to make expenses for anything that's been appropriated in the city budget. There is definitely some efficiencies to that, but yeah, as long as we're following public contracting laws, we go out for a public and a formal solicitation process for anything over $150,000 anyway. And so there's certainly a lot of public process that's involved with anything over $150,000, regardless of any spending limits that the city manager has. I'll say that.
Okay.
Open up for discussion.
All right, here we go. Anybody got a thought on this?
I would just say, I don't think there's too many cities that have an unlimited amount on any city manager. They all have restrictions, even all the way up to the state level. So it just implies some transparency and some safeguards within our system to keep it capped at 150. And we don't typically run into too many contracts throughout the year that are over 150, but if they were needed to be approved quickly, we're all available for an emergency meeting if needed. So that was my input.
I'm seeing some head nods. Somebody want to make a motion? You'd like a motion, I assume?
Yes, because it will require amendments to the municipal code, which our city attorney could make.
Okay.
Yeah, if I can just ask a few questions about that.
Sure.
For my drafting purposes, the memo refers to purchases. Is this, is this also intended to include public improvement contracts?
No.
Just purchases, just purchases, okay.
So if we, it seems to me the way to do this probably is to get the affirmation of the council that you'd like to see a motion, and Lane and can draw that up for us so that it's technically correct. Is that right? It probably has a couple features
Oh, yeah,
to it.
yeah, it would not be.
We don't want to do it on the fly.
No,
We're not gonna
Yeah,
amend on the fly.
the motion would be to direct me to prepare an ordinance to implement the recommendation.
Okay, someone
So
like to
moved.
make that? It's been moved by Larry and Ken second. And any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. You got a mission.
Yeah, thanks. And there may be some assumptions that I'll have to make as I'm drafting this. I'll make clear what they are. When you see it, we can talk about the details when we get in front of you.
Cool. Thank you very much.
All right. So the third item on the agenda is revisiting kind of the ARP, not kind of, but revisiting the ARPA project list. So the history of ARPA, I'm not going to go through the whole deal, but we have, the council has agreed to allocate projects for all of the ARPA funding that the city has received. There were 8 projects that were approved. The approved project list is attachment A to this report. So with that project list, There's been some further conversations with our city staff that included the fire and EMS division. If you recall, the largest project in terms of dollars and cents was the second fire and EMS substation. In evaluating our needs as the department, it's important for us to be able to provide the 24/7 fire protection coverages with professional firefighters. Soon, we'd like to do that as soon as we can. The concept was to have this second substation, or the first substation, but our second station, accommodate the housing for those firefighter personnel. There's opportunities, I think, before us in the immediate future to secure housing through a house that's across the street from the current station. And if we're able to do that, that removes the need for the second station for housing purposes. Now, there's other benefits to having a secondary station located on the north side of Rockwell Creek, especially from an emergency response standpoint. That being said, also in talking with the fire and EMS department, including our volunteers, Dallas used to have a nice training facility located in the south part of town. With a lease agreement that didn't go in our favor, we lost that facility. Since then, our training grounds are limited to the gravel lot just to the south of the current station. It's woefully inadequate for the needs of training. We have a great training officer in our deputy chief, and he's doing really good work with what he's been handed. But the needs, as stated again from our volunteers and our professional staff, is to have a fire training facility established back in Dallas, which would enable our fire personnel and volunteers to be trained much better than they are today, with adequate resources and facilities to accommodate that training. So in order to accommodate that, what I'm recommending in the staff report is to move away from the $2.5 million project for a second fire and EMS station. Instead, allocate ARPA resources towards securing housing in an alternate fashion, which could be the house across the street if we're able to secure that, or it could be an alternative housing, perhaps on the current training lot, or another alternative similar to something like that. That would enable that 24-hour fire protection, which the city is going after as part of our strategic plan. Also, with the funding from that station project, we would recommend construction of a fire training facility located on the property the city purchased for the water tank off of James Howe Road. There's a large open area on that site that would accommodate several acres of a training facility that could be built. We've done the preliminary number crunching on that and feel that we could get a very nice training facility with adequate space for around $1 million. So that's a project that we would look at as well on the recommended project list. That's attachment B of the staff report, I believe. Or actually it's C. Attachment B is the investment principles. So attachment C, it looks like this. You can see it in the packet. The recommended or the proposed project list is recommended by staff would be to eliminate that second substation, build the fire training facility for $1 million, the fire living quarters allocating $500,000, and then an additional request that city staff has been working on is a citywide security camera system. I can talk a little bit about that, and you can ask me questions later, but right now the city has a variety of security cameras in all of our facilities. Most of them are purchased off the shelf from a supplier such as Costco. So they're not your good cameras. And a lot of them are old or end of life, and some of them have just stopped working altogether. And so what we're recommending here is a citywide security camera system that's integrated. So all the cameras work together. in all of our different facilities. And it's one system. We've done the pricing on that, working with Polk County, who has their own camera system with their IS departments who would help us as well. And we contract with them for services. And we believe that we could get a camera system installed for under $400,000, but again, allocating $400,000 towards that project. The last request was from Polk County Family Community Outreach. They came a couple council meetings ago and requested the council allocate $25,000 this fiscal year for the services that they provide to residents in our community who need things for rental assistance, down payments for deposits on rentals, some food security, some job, things for transportation, whether it be bus passes or needs to repair vehicles, things of that nature. So Monmouth Independence both have allocated some of their ARPA funding towards their services. They're requesting $25,000 from the city of Dallas to be spent on residents within our community for those needs that they have. So there's $25,000 for that. So broken out on that proposed project list, again, you eliminate the fire EMS substation at $2.5 million, and you replace that with a fire training facility at $1 million, fire living quarters at $500,000, citywide security camera system at $400,000. The Polk County Family Community Outreach request is $25,000, which would leave contingency of $575,000. If you didn't do the Polk County Family Community Outreach, that would be $600,000. So that's what's proposed and recommended from city staff. Happy to answer specific questions that you might have.
Okay, Christian.
So can I ask? a
Yeah.
question? Okay, so last time we chatted, I had a question for you about the bathroom situation. If the house is purchased, it was a 1 bathroom situation, and then you'd have male and female sharing 1 bathroom. Were we able to figure out if that's kosher? Okay, so I feel like we need to get that figured out.
And we were looking at a couple different houses. Todd, the house that we're looking at, is it a single restroom in that house? I think there is a half bath. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yes, so that's something that would need to be considered and resolved as part of any housing that we secure for the fire personnel. Yeah, so the question, one of the houses that we're looking at across the street from the fire department on Shelton Street, we can't remember if it has 1 or 1.5 baths in it. And so if we have both male and female personnel sleeping in the house, can we get away with just 1 bathroom, or do we need to have 2 bathrooms? A male and female restroom. So that's something just for us to make sure we're looking into as part of the housing solution if we buy an existing house.
So what would that do to that $500,000 number?
Right.
So we would secure the house for much less than $500,000. And the house that we're looking at is currently under renovations. And so the $500,000 would help us to renovate it up to what we need to be able to accommodate the housing, including the restrooms. So I don't think that changes that number.
Okay, anybody else? Christian.
So we started this whole process by making sure that we had community input and hearing from the community what they wanted us to make decisions around with the ARPA funding. And I'm wondering, how far have we drifted from that input?
So the areas where we're drifting from the input would be with the citywide security camera system and the Polk County Family Community Outreach. Those are 2 things that the community never really saw. With the, and you could also argue with the fire training facility, they didn't see that. The fire EMS substation and the fire living quarters achieves a lot of the same things. And so I feel that one are pretty comparable. But the other ones, you're right, outside of this process here, that we're in right now, the public has not been given an opportunity to chime in on this.
Michael.
And on top of that, the public was not involved after we got a release of the money. as far as the actual criteria. Public
Right.
was involved prior to when it was a very limited program.
Yep, that's correct.
And so there were topics such as employee reimbursement for during being COVID was one of the top ones. The ambulance was number one. On down the line is durable medical supplies, which was already paid for, building improvements, public works facility, which we're doing, bulk water, which we're doing, small business development, which we have done already, library restrooms, city hall, HVAC, lock reel, master plan, electronic reader, and Dallas business were all the ones that were on that. I personally have a little bit of problems with funding Polk County off of the ARPA funds. I don't like the idea of funding. I like the idea of getting Polk County the money, but this is a one-time fee that we have money for. And I think Polk County is looking for a longer term commitment. So if we're going to come up with money, we need to figure out a way to fund it, not just a one-time amount. I mean, it's small, it's peanuts on this budget. Second, I do know, I'm curious about, I mean, we're talking fire. There were other reasons we were doing the fire train and the fire, whatever it's called, the outfitted stage substation. And I think we're getting away from why we were going after that. I'm kind of curious how the Parks Department,
How the parks plays into the situation here.
because
So-
we're also looking at police too.
Right. So with the outfitted substation, one of the comments there is that we would not pursue that option until we had resolution on the parks district, because our city budget cannot currently handle the increase in staffing on a sustainable year over year effort on the budget. And so if we had the Parks and Rec district created and we knew that that was forthcoming, then we could hire the additional public safety staff, both on police and fire, in our needs in our community and support that. So this $2.5 million was kind of held in suspense until we know next year, this time next year in November, whether that question is going to be approved by the voters. I don't think that conversation with the fire living quarters. So where we are today with that is we are hiring a fire captain today, because with the retirement of Chief Brumfield, it puts a strain on our duty officer responsibilities to be able to cover duty officer responsibilities with existing staff that we would have, including Todd's replacement. And so the new captain will relieve management from having to take over that duty officer responsibility. We're also pursuing today a Oregon Fire Marshal State something OFSC grant. Fire Marshal Capacity Grant. I was close. But we're pursuing that grant opportunity, which is similar to the SAFER grant, which funds personnel for up to 3 years. It's better for the city because there's less obligation from city funds over that 3 years than there would be with the traditional SAFER grants. So we're pursuing that opportunity to fill those firefighter positions. And so in the short term, over the first 2 to 3 years from today, if we're successful with that grant, the city would not, we don't need to worry about the sustainability question. So we could move forward today with purchasing the house on Shelton Street. What I'm trying to get us into is a situation where we can unwind ourselves really easily, right? So for the next 3 years, all we're paying for in staffing is the captain plus the incremental increases in those two fire personnel, which we could sustain in our city budget. Next year, we'll know the Parks and Rec conversation. And so then we can know beyond those 3 years, can we continue to afford this? If the Parks and Rec district fails and the community doesn't support our general fund budget in another way, after that 3 years, then we can, pull the plug on the 24 fire protection and we can sell the house at real market value at that time. And we're not really out any money on the investment of the $500,000 towards the house. So that's why it makes sense on the house side to move forward with that before November of next year with these other investments of the captain and the OFSC grant for personnel. So that's kind of where that is. It doesn't address the house situation, does not address the emergency response opportunities. I think that having 2 stations and responding from 2 different locations, you might be able to reduce response times, if they're both staffed when the call comes in, stuff of that nature. So you are losing a little bit of that without having a second station. Larry?
Can you kind of draw a picture of what the $1 million would buy us and what we currently do in training, and if there's any savings because of that?
Yeah, so Todd, can you come up and speak to what we currently do with training and answer that question? And then I'll look up what it'll buy us, because I have that here.
No, let's know, I pretend to be a training officer on TV, but not really a training officer, so. But the training grounds that we have is that very small postage stamp next to fire station. And it's, I can't remember, maybe 5 or 6 inches of gravel. So it's not even strong enough to park our apparatus on. So the apparatus, for the most part, have to stay off of that square pad for training. What we can do on there is throw ladders up against the building. Okay, so we do that of the various sizes of ladders. We probably go by there and see a lot of cars, a lot of vehicles, and so we do a lot of extrication practice with those vehicles, cutting apart the cars, so we're still experienced with that. We can also do some other training with our power tools, so we can bring in things that cut up with. Recently built a prop out there. It's a window prop, and it's also an elevated roof prop. It stays on the ground. It's not elevated, but that gives the training for the firefighters to be on a grate to cut vertical ventilation into a roof, basically. And then the window prop also helps us to actually window ladder in the window area and how you would access either egress or egress into a window. Let's see, we can also we do various hose lay maneuvers, pulling a truck up to that area, and we'll put out some cones and things, pretend those are fires, and we'll have the firefighters come out, grab their hose, engage the pump, engage the water, and kind of squirt the cone and pretend that's the fire. Gets them in that rote memorization of what to do initially on structure fire attack. We do our fitness testing, our annual fitness testing in that area as well. And that's comprised of a couple obstacles, pulling hose again. So we're trying to do as much as we can with that area, but again, it's very limited for size and of course
Weeks ago, some training going on at Walker Middle School or some kind. Trucks and cones and people driving around.
So what that $1 million buys you, Councilor Briggs, is 1 acre of a concrete pad. That's about 1/3 of the size that we would ultimately need with full build out. And that's about $1/3 of $1 million. There. Hydrants that need to be installed at a cost. There is a 500-gallon drafting pit, and that's for pump testing and flushing and other things of that nature. A burn container to 1402 specs. You would have 3 SAR containers. Those are shipping containers that are set in a U pattern and allows the interior to be shifted around. There would be a 100 by 100 extrication pad with curbs. There would be a 40-foot by 60-foot by 20-foot building with overhead doors to allow trucks, insulated heat cooled finished loft classroom bathrooms, both attached to classroom and in truck bays, and a backup generator. And then a 30 by 40 by 16-foot prop for fuel storage building, and a 1 foot by 1 foot Hagen Memorial area. And that gets it $2 million.
I have a follow-up question also. So with the purchase of the house, does that give us 24/7 or not give us 24/7?
So the purchase of the house enables us to get to 24/7. The hiring of the captain and the 2 fire personnel through the grant, if we're successful with that, would get us to 24/7.
Kristen.
Did we get the grant for the Japanese gardens?
We got the grant for the bridge for the
Mhm.
Japanese gardens. We've yet to apply for another grant. Is that right, Gary? Have we applied for a separate grant for the Japanese gardens yet?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, but we are utilizing some of the ARPA funding for the design work, which will enable us to then be competitive with the grant ask for construction.
Other questions? Sure.
I just have one question. Would this training facility be open for other fire districts to use?
It would, and we would actually encourage that. The land that it's on is forest land in the county. And so I have confirmed with Polk County zoning that would enable it. But yes, and as we do today with training, we oftentimes will have multiple agencies together. So I could foresee us certainly helping and encouraging other departments such as Southwest Polk, Polk One, Fall City, and others that would like to utilize that training facility.
Anything else? So you think you're going to do a survey of the population on these new terms or something like that?
If the council would like us to do that.
Kind
we
of
can-
sounded like Michael is interested, maybe not. Hard to tell.
Yeah.
Um,
No discussion on improving our police station that we have needed for some years.
Yeah, so we've talked about that with the Public Safety Committee, and we're exploring the conversion of this building and an expansion into a police department. So that conversation's ongoing.
Okay, any other questions? Do you need some guidance tonight, or was this just an ongoing discussion at this point?
So you can go back in my report here. I am looking for direction from the council on whether you want to make revisions to your approved project list. And so you can do that. You can decide to take more time to think about it. You can really do whatever you want with this. The funds don't have to be committed until December 30th of 2024. So you have another 2 years and a month to decide how you want to spend these. And then we have until December 30th of 2026 to actually spend the money. So again, one of your investment principles is to take time, think about it. This is just in order for us to accommodate 24/7 fire protection services. We feel that there's an opportunity closer in the front window than there is to build the second substation. And so that's where these conversations kind of bubbled up from. So you might say, hey, let's revise the list, add the fire housing, so that if that opportunity does come to pass, we can jump on it, and then hold off on the rest, however you want to move forward. So
I would support that.
All right, so it looks like the elements that you're interested in then, and the council seems to be interested as well, are those elements that replace the functions of the fire EMS substation. Is that correct? Fire
I think
training,
at least the living quarters.
at
I
least
don't
the
know about
living
training
quarters,
facility.
but not necessarily the fire training facility.
Correct.
I disagree. I think that I'm going to make a silly analogy, but right now what we have for our fire training is like giving somebody the old Wii game Duck Hunter and thinking that that is adequate training for police to know how to actually shoot a gun. We do not have adequate training facilities for our fire. And this would provide that not only for our fire department but we could then expand that and be good partners for others. So I think that we should continue to consider the fire training facility. We are not adequately training our fire department, especially when we continue to rely on volunteers in our town. And we're not able to adequately train them. I think we really need to consider this training facility.
Terry.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a motion. I move that we accept the proposed project list minus the Polk County FCO request.
At this point,
I'll second.
there's a second from Bill. Motion from Terry, second to Bill, to approve it as presented. Is that correct, Terry?
Except
Except for the 25,000 for the Polk County FCO. Is that correct? Right. Any,
Discussion.
and it's seconded.
I
Discussion.
agree with this and that's why I seconded it. I think that by accepting this, it's still just another draft. Because we've already changed it at least twice before. So there's nothing that says at this point that we've drafted it in stone. So I think that we should move ahead with this. And then we could always revise it again, less the Polk County amount.
Is that your interpretation as well?
It is, except that we would move forward if the opportunity presented itself to buy the house. So I wouldn't come back before the council and say, hey, the house is available, do you want to buy it? You're telling me today that yes, when the house becomes available, we will buy it, right? We can start moving forward with securing, bids for a training facility and start planning that out. So what you are left with is $600,000 of uncommitted funding, which, if any of these projects had an overrun, I would come back to you and say, hey, let's draw down this contingency. Or do you want to draw down the contingency? But anything else that's on the list is fair game to be completed.
Ken.
I have a couple of questions on the Polk County money. When would they expect, if we were given 25,000, when would we do that?
I think they've already spent the money. I mean, what I mean by that is they would like to get it now.
They want it now, but
Yep.
this money is not to be used up until next, 2 or 3 years.
You can spend all the money tomorrow, or you can wait until December 30th of 2026. That's the time frame.
I'm not really comfortable of not contributing to Polk County because it does help Dallas citizens. Yeah. I like the proposal, the final proposal as it sits myself, including the Polk County money, because it does benefit residents of the city of Dallas. And it's our small fair share to go into Polk County along with the other cities that are in the county.
You could move to amend the motion to add the 25,000.
Is that an amendment?
Yes. it is.
Okay, the amendment's been offered and is seconded by someone. Does anyone want to second the amendment? Any second? Right, motion to amend dies for lack of a second. So we're back to the original motion, which would be the project list as presented minus the 25,000.
I think that if we're going to consider the 25,000, that we could look at that within our budget needs rather than putting that out of the ARPA fund.
Okay. Kristen.
Can you expand that a little bit more, Bill? When would we look at that?
Well, I think we could look at it, now, and determine whether it's feasible to take it without, I mean, outside the budget, I mean, from the budget that we've just approved for July through next June.
Okay.
Can Brian answer that?
Yeah, so, we can certainly, if you're not going to use the ARPA funding for considerations of its one-time revenue that we're receiving and they're maybe looking for a sustainable funding source, the sustainable funding source would be from your general fund of the city's budget. And so we can, if you want me to look at that as part of the budget preparation and give me some guidance going into budget prep, that would be fine. And we can, there's no money in today's budget as it's been prepared and appropriated for this FCO request. But if you're looking at supporting their office and their needs for Dallas residents moving into next fiscal year, just tell me how much money you want to have reflected in the budget and I'll see how I can make that fit.
Kristen?
Can I make that motion?
Not while this one. is
Yeah.
pending. It's not. pertinent
It'll
to
come
the-
up during the budget process.
Well, I would,
She can do it right after. this
yeah,
is-
let's go ahead and finish the motion that's on the table and then we can
Okay,
discuss.
so then I would
time.
like to have a better understanding, since the citywide security camera system was not, it's a surprise, was not anything discussed by our citizenry. None of the neighbors requested it. I'd like to know, how does this make our city a better place? Help me understand that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's a matter of scale, in my opinion. So right now we have security cameras inside City Hall. We protect our property and evidence in the police department with security cameras. We protect our library with security cameras and those people that use the library with those security cameras, from incidents of maybe being assaulted or abused in the library, theft of public resources out of the library. Those are how cameras are used in the library. For example, at the Aquatic Center, we do have residents and users of the Aquatic Center who've been victims of theft there. And so having cameras to be able to identify people with, exact date stamps of when the theft, was purported to occur, and seeing who's walking out with a big bundle of towels with stuff underneath is helpful. Our current camera system just doesn't enable that. Again, because we bought a non-commercial grade, integrated camera system for each of our facilities that has been cobbled together over time. And so I think for our residents who are victims of crime or are, seeing their public resources used where areas where cameras could prevent that is a good thing. Another area where we would look at putting a camera that we currently don't have one is under the Lock Rail Bridge, which that wall under the bridge along the trail is a frequent victim of graffiti that we remove at least twice a month. And so we're spending time and resources to cover up graffiti on the regular in that location. There's other locations around town. So again, we're utilizing city resources and funds and personnel to rectify that where maybe a camera would prohibit or at least discourage that behavior. And if not discourage it, at least find the person that's doing it in a much faster fashion for that aspect as well. But, and there might be some other opportunities around the city, outside of buildings that you may want to, have cameras be put on, added to the system that we currently don't have. So that's kind of where we're looking today for that security camera system, is just having one integrated system that covers everything that we currently use cameras for. And then some additional ones where it makes sense, where we're spending city's resources unnecessarily.
So the ask from the people who live and work here in Dallas is for $25,000 so that they can continue to live and work here in Dallas. And then we'd want to find a way to make that sustainable. Or we can spend $400,000 to find some teenage kid who's graffitiing underneath the bridge. That just doesn't feel right to me. It seems to make more sense to me and make more sense for our community and for the people who live and work here, that we would actually, like, yes, I can see if if people are really stealing that many towels or books from the library, that $400,000 for that integrated camera system. But really, if we can give that money to the people who live and work here, that's where I would prefer to see that money. And then on top of that, to look at how do we make this a sustainable part of our budget moving forward, even if it can't be $25,000 every 25. Yeah, 25. No, not 25,000. Is that correct? Okay. Every budget. How do we make it sustainable moving forward? So one time out of our ARPA funds. But the camera system, I'm not understanding where it's coming from, and I'm not seeing how that 400,000 is. I don't know.
Yeah, and so again, just to clarify, the camera system, we have cameras today.
Mhm.
All of them are either dysfunctional or nearing the end of life. And so it's an investment that we have to replace anyway. The question is, do we spend, several $1,000s on buying Costco cameras again, which will all die again, probably sooner than later, or purchase that camera system that makes more sense for a city of our size and the needs that we have for that. I don't disagree with your statements around the needs of our citizens in town. I think that is demonstrated and that it is great. The county has invested some of their ARPA funds. They received $16.7 million, way more money than we received. They put about $250,000 towards countywide assistance to the family community outreach program. And again, Monmouth put some of their money towards it, and Independence put some of theirs as well. So, they came and requested 25,000. It's the council's decision on how all this money gets spent. So staff are just presenting options.
All right, any more discussion? We have a motion on the floor.
I've got a clarification on the motion. Does it provide 24/7 service like the previous commitment we had with the outfitted substation, or does it not?
So it provides the housing that's needed for the 24-hour coverage. The city, outside of ARPA, is investing in a fire captain position, which is also needed. And then we have applied for a grant to add 2 additional firefighters that would also be needed to get to that 24-hour professional firefighter coverage. And so, yes, the ARPA funds enables the 24-hour coverage to be established. If we didn't have the housing, we don't have a place to put that added fire personnel for 24 hours.
But the 24-hour coverage wouldn't start until we received the grant and hired all the appropriate personnel.
And purchase the housing. Yep.
Okay, any other questions? Michael?
I just want to clarify, I'm not against the $25,000 for the FCO at all. I just wanted to make sure that if we're taking a step forward, that we make sure that it's on a continual basis, not a one-time thing. And that's why I was so adamant about it. 25,000 is not a big number in the ARPA scheme of things. I did want more clarification. I'm glad you asked about the security cameras. I want to know what we're getting for that a little bit more before we actually spend that money. So I guess, do I have to make a motion to put a contingency on that?
You could amend the motion to remove the city-wide security camera system until we get further information. I can bring back a breakdown of what we currently have, what we need to replace it with, an improved system. $400,000 is more than we need. I can guarantee you closer to around $300,000. But in today's world with inflation and other things, I want to make sure that we have adequate funding for all of our projects.
Could we make that a friendly?
Well,
No, I don't think it's, no, I don't think it's friendly. I think you'd have to.
Okay, well, let's make the motion then if you want to make an amendment.
Well, I just want a head shake. Do
No,
you want it removed?
The lawyer thinks we need to.
Well,
be more formal.
somebody can make a motion if they want to, otherwise you'll go to vote.
Can somebody
on the
remind me
motion,
what the
including
motion
cameras.
currently is?
Yes,
So,
what's that? It's
yeah,
everything except the 25,000
Thank
for
you.
Polk County Family Outreach. Unless somebody makes a motion, that's what's coming up. for
All right, well, we have a pure mail motion right now.
I call for the question.
Okay,
That requires a 75% majority. Two-thirds.
2/3.
2/3.
Because calling for the question, that's just a way to end discussion.
I want,
Okay,
let's vote.
well, you're
Is
not
it-
voting on the motion, you're voting on.
You're
voting.
voting on.
Well, let's
you're
just
voting on
ask
whether to
first, is
vote.
there any more discussion?
We're voting, aren't
Well-
we,
To end discussion.
initially
End
on
discussion.
what was
Nope.
made by Terry and
First, that you're voting on to whether to end discussion.
Yes, so
That's
the
what
call,
calling
so
the
the call,
question
so the
is.
call the question, you're gonna take a vote right now, Mayor, on
Yeah,
if
Ending
two,
discussion.
if 2/3 of the people will end the discussion. So let's have that vote.
All right. All those in favor of the question, which is, calling the question, which is to end the discussion on this particular motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
same.
No,
I think you're gonna need a hand raise at least.
All right.
Yeah, let's,
So so we can
Let's-
record the vote. We gotta record who's voting.
I want a roll call.
Yep.
Roll
So I had
call.
all ayes except for count.
let's just do a roll call
Roll
vote, Sam.
call.
All right, let's do a roll call.
Roll call, please.
Council President Schilling,
No.
Counselor Briggs,
No.
Counselor Collins,
And to clarify, this is just to stop discussion.
No.
Counselor Crawford,
Yes.
Counselor Fitzgerald,
No.
Counselor Hahn,
yes.
Counselor Woods.
no.
Okay, the noes have it. On we go with discussion. Anything else?
I would
Kirsten,
just like to
go ahead.
remind the council that Polk County is contributing in excess of $150,000 to this fund. Monmouth, the city of Monmouth, $200,000. Independence at $49,500. They're asking Dallas to contribute $25,000.
I propose a roll vote on each item down the line.
All right. Let's.
On
that's-
each
that's a-
new item?
Each one of these new
Is that-
5 items.
New item.
In effect,
That's a
You're
amendment.
bifurcating the
in
motion.
effect,
Yeah.
you're dividing the question.
Mhm.
And
So the
that
motion's to
requires a
include-
2/3
Yeah.
majority to divide the question.
Good for you. We've never had that before.
Yeah,
Terry
yeah.
Robert.
That's a first for the city council.
Yeah, 22 years, 40 years.
So Mayor, Chief Simpson has a comment or a question, if you would like.
Yes.
Collins, just to answer your question a little bit more in detail. Part of the cameras that failed right at our campus, we had right outside our doors here, where officers come out at night. And it's a safety, it's a very safety. Yeah. That is in addition to.
Thank you. Thank you. That additional information is important. Thank you.
Okay, more discussion. More discussion. I'm not hearing any more discussion. Very well, the motion's on the floor to approve the entire project list, save the $25,000. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. Off we go. Let's do a roll call.
Council President Schilling,
Yes.
Counselor Briggs,
No.
Counselor Collins,
No.
Counselor Crawford,
Yes.
Counselor Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Counselor Hahn,
Yes.
Counselor Woods.
No,
I think it fails. We need
I
five.
think
We have to find them.
Mhm. Yeah.
we have, it passed, did you
It
say?
failed.
No, it fails.
I couldn't
4
hear all the
4 to
votes.
3.
4 to
So we
3.
need 5 votes.
We need 5 votes for it to,
I'd like to make another motion now to vote on each one individually.
you could.
What, just start making a motion?
I just did.
No, I mean, well, just, I think, separate motion for each item.
Yeah, let's do a separate motion for each item. So why don't you start with the motion for the fire training facility at $1 million?
Well, we'd start with canceling the substation, I believe.
You can start there, yeah.
All right.
So moved.
So it's been moved and seconded. Anybody? Seconded? Seconded to remove the fire substation, the $2.5 million. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same. Okay, that's taken care of. Now, if we hear a dissenting vote, we'll go back to a roll call on each
Each
one.
vote has to be recorded. So if you're voting no, speak up so we can make sure we record that.
Correct. Building improvement grants, $200,000.
We need a
Someone,
motion on that.
we need a motion.
No. So I think Counselor Briggs, you just want to do the ones that are
changes.
proposed to change.
Okay.
So
Is that
just
right?
now
Yeah,
the
just
green
the
ones,
change.
Mayor.
Never mind. The change was the fire station. We moved that. Fire training facility, $1 million. Someone want to make that
So
motion?
moved.
It's been moved by Larry, seconded by Bill. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
That'll be reflected as unanimous.
Passes unanimously. We're now talking about the fire living quarters, $500,000. If you wish to make that motion.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded by Bill, by Larry and Bill. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Oh, wait,
Oh,
there's some
sorry,
discussion.
discussion.
Sorry, the only piece of discussion I want to make sure is recorded that we do want to make sure that we have the bathroom situation figured out.
Yeah, that would be part of the
Okay.
renovations of the building.
Great.
Question answered. Any other discussion? None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same, motion carries
Unanimously.
unanimously. On to, we got the fire living quarters taken care of. We're on to the citywide security camera system for $400,000. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
It's been moved by Counselor Collins, seconded by Bill. All right, discussion. Any discussion over the cameras? I'm going to do a roll call vote on that one, just in anticipation. All right. Secretary call roll.
Council President Schilling,
Yes.
Council Briggs,
No.
Council Collins,
Yes.
Council Crawford,
Yes.
Councilor Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Councilor Hahn,
Yes.
Councilor Woods.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carries 6-1. All right, so that passes. On we go to Polk County SCO requested $25,000. Someone wish to make that motion?
I'll
It's
make that
moved by
motion.
Counselor Collins and seconded by Ken, Counselor Woods. All right, discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same.
No.
Roll call.
Mayor, can I get a clarification on who made the motion and who was seconded?
That was Counselor Woods and.
So Counselor
Christian
Collins made the motion.
Counselor Woods seconded it.
And it was.
So Councilor Woods made the motion. No, Councilor
Counselor Collins
Counselor
made the
Kirsten.
motion. Counselor Woods seconded.
Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. Call the roll, please.
Council President Schilling,
Yes.
Councilor Briggs,
No.
Councilor Collins,
Yes.
Councilor Crawford,
No.
Councilor Fitzgerald,
No.
Councilor Hahn,
No.
Councilor Woods.
Yes.
Okay, motion fails.
Yeah, we're back.
And I don't think you need to worry about the contingency inflation.
No, I
That's
don't
just the
either.
leftover money.
All right, so you have the guidance, I guess. Very.
Yep, we'll move forward.
All right. Anything else for us this evening? Anything else to,
I do. I have other business.
well, we've got.
So
You
just,
still-
yeah, just one quick last report. So just so the council's aware, the Oregon Department of Transportation approached the city of Dallas, which is rare, to offer us money to update our transportation system plan. We said yes. And so we're going through an RFP process today currently to find a contractor to help us update our old transportation system plan at no cost to us because ODOT's gonna shepherd that project with, or at least give us the money to be able to do that project. So we're excited about that, but just wanted to make sure you were all aware that that eventually will come to you through an adoption process of that transportation system plan. So just know that that was not included in the budget, but we got some money from ODOT without even asking. It's great.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other business come for the council? Go ahead.
Yes, so we all sit around this table with incredible privilege. And by virtue of the fact that we've been either appointed or we've been elected, we also have power. And once again, we are passing by opportunities to become educated, to make sure that we're using our privilege to find ways to use our privilege and our power to make sure that we are setting policy and procedure for the betterment of everyone in our community. And I'm going to, once again, recommend that we educate ourselves as a council to make sure that we educate ourselves on issues of diversity, equity, and we are finding ways to be more inclusive. And I'd like to suggest that this go back to committee for recommending to hire a consultant.
Is that a suggestion or a motion?
I guess it's a motion.
All right, could you?
Yeah, the motion would be to direct committee to review the hiring of an equity, diversity, and inclusivity consultant to develop a program or present a program of training to the council.
Yes,
Okay, nicely done.
thank you.
Does everyone understand the motion? Is there a second to this motion? Is there a second to this motion? I do not hear a second. Motion dies select. Say, thank you very much for the offer. I'll make a comment that League of Oregon Cities, which offers training every year at 4 different locations each year. The latest one, Bend, had extensive training and involvement with equity, inclusion, and diversity. Quite an excellent program with speakers from around the nation. You're all eligible to go to those sessions. All right, thank you very much. Oops, sorry.
I have one question.
All right.
I don't know if, have we received any communication from DEQ as a result of the property on Main Street?
So they are in, we do know that DEQ is moving on it. They have put out a request, a public notice request regarding their no further action letter. And so that they're in process of gathering that public input, and then they'll make a decision. Our estimated timeframe on that is that they'll issue that letter sometime in December.
And then we have an opportunity under the terms of the sale agreement to review it and approve it or disapprove it. And that really is the last piece. Everything else is in order and available to move to closing if we approve the no further action.
Well, I asked because it seems like it's
taken forever.
3 months.
Yeah.
since,
It's been more than that.
they
It's been
said
too
it was
long.
in the mail.
Yeah,
Yeah, good.
but there is an official notice out for comment on the NOFA.
Right. All right. Well, anything else to come for the council this evening? If not, I would adjourn this session and welcome you back in a couple of weeks.
Right.